Once you are without anger, then you can get really angry. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than Dharmic anger.
Welcome to the Ram Dass Here and Now podcast. This is episode 253, Dharmic Anger. I'm Jackie Dobrinska, and as always, it's an honor to be here with you, this incredible community that comes together through time and space to honor the wisdom of this great luminary. Thank you for tuning in. This episode is a continuation of 252, and it's a question and answer session recorded in Melbourne, Australia in 1981. And it's really potent. But before we jump in, I want to chat for a second about these introductions. I know your preferences vary. Both Raghu and I have gotten incredible fan mail, and both of us have gotten whatever is the opposite of fan mail. Some of you have said that these intros help give important perspective, and others, well, for others, we're sort of like the opening act for your favorite band. We stand between you and what you really want to hear. So now you have options. Be Here Now Network has partnered with Patreon, which is this great organization that helps to support artists. So it allows you, when you subscribe, to not only skip the ads, but if you so choose, these opening acts as well. And I'm sure a few of you out there are thrilled with this option. So when you subscribe, you support us, you support these podcasts in going out, and you get choice. So go to patreon.com/Ram Dass podcast. Again, that's patreon.com/Ram Dass podcast. To spell that, it's PATREON. So this week's episode, wow. He really unpacks some familiar teachings, but in this precise manner that feels really potent. So there are teachings you might know, like there's the one about anger. And I know that teaching, there's always been a few questions I've had about it. And in this episode, he unpacks it and clarifies and illuminates in a way that I found powerful. And he does this with several topics. Maybe this will happen with you. He talks about love and evil. He talks about politics and karma. He talks about social action. And he talks about psychedelics in a powerful way as well, which is interesting timing given what's going on in the news cycle right now. But that's not all. There's this incredible moment that's relatively rare where Ram Dass shares a personal reflection on homosexuality and his own journey of self-acceptance. So as we celebrate Pride Month, I'm just really excited that our team found this segment to highlight. And I hope that it might offer solace and understanding to those who have faced adversity due to religious dogmas. So for those of you out there in the LGBTQ plus community, please make sure you check out our LGBTQ plus satsang. They meet once a month, and it's a really special group. We have several affinity groups. We have a women's group, we have a BIPOC group, we have a Spanish-speaking group, and these are all welcoming environments for those who identify, for people to share their shared experience, to be able to express themselves authentically without fear or judgment or defensiveness or discrimination. Because as Ram Dass said, we must appreciate the diversity within the unity. You know, we also have groups for parents and young adults and psychonauts, and we have our general soul pod group that meets every 2 weeks. So check them all out. Go to ramdass.org/fellowship to be a part. And then we want to end by thanking Magic Mind, which has become my favorite little drink. It's really become an important part of my morning routine, and it sustains my energy levels and, surprisingly, my mood throughout the day. It contains probably one of my favorite herbs, rhodiola, which is both an adaptogen and a nootropic. And it's super easy to travel with, which I've been doing a lot of lately, so I'm grateful for that. You can get a discount off your next order when you use the code RAMDAS at checkout. Go to magicmind.com/RAMDAS. So we'll just end with a big thank you, mostly a big thank you to Ramdas for all of these lectures that he gave so that we can continue to put them out into the world. And a big thank you to our team who does so much work to bring them to us all. And then, of course, a big thank you to you for tuning in. And as always, just gratitude for the privilege to be able to show up here together. And as always, we dedicate the good that comes from these teachings to all beings everywhere. So without further ado, here is Ramdas, here and now.
The word surrender, the true surrender is, of course, no surrender. It's like ripping a skin off a snake. If you try to surrender, you just be somebody that's surrendering, which is another way of not surrendering. Okay? If you just do what you do, you will notice that certain things keep falling away. The deeper your wisdom, the more you seek purification. The more you purify, the quieter your mind. The quieter your mind, the deeper your wisdom. The deeper the wisdom, the more you seek purification. And things will just fall away of their own accord. And they will be surrender that is no surrender. Ramana Maharshi said, I didn't eat. They said I was fasting. Okay. Now, it's perfectly all right to do tapasya, austerities, a spiritual practice that involves renunciation or surrendering to somebody or something. But at the same moment, you realize that to the extent that you intend and choose to do it, it is just another intention and mind model that you are investing yourself in. It's another prison. You are becoming somebody who is surrendering. But the thing is, to surrender to a system will often allow you to see where your stash of holding is. Like when I am at Muktananda's ashram, they get up at 4 o'clock to chant. Now, I sleep usually till 9. But when I'm at Muktananda's ashram, I get up at 4 to chant. And to the extent that I don't want to get up at 4 to chant, isn't that interesting? Right? That's an act of surrender. And that's at that level. Right? Now, a lot of people say, how can I surrender to him? He might be impure. They are looking for a teacher, and what they end up is as incredible connoisseurs of clay feet. Because they can tell you exactly what each teacher's limitation is. That one plays hanky-panky under the table, and that one gossips, and that one I saw eat meat, and that one drives in a Rolls Royce, and that one, wears perfume, and that one, performs miracles, and that one, everybody's wrong. The best thing to do is take teachings wherever you can get them, and then go on. All you owe to a teacher is to become free. You don't owe them the time of day other than that. Any teacher worth their salt only wants you to be free. That's all they want. And if they want anything else, that's their karmic predicament. See, if you get sucked into a trip with a guru that you end up being upset about, that's because you wanted to enter into that trip with that guru, which you're doing it to yourself. You're just using that person. The guru has their karma, you have yours. And if a guru is finished with their karma, they have collective karma or something like that. But nobody's doing it to anybody else, including Jim Jones or Henry Kissinger in Vietnam. Wow. Yes. Go ahead. On astrology. Astrology is an exquisite articulation of a set of laws which apply to us as astral entities. It describes the way in which forms interact from one plane of looking at it. There are many astral storylines. I am an Aries with a certain thing in my 10th house and so on. And that has certain implications. I can invest in that, and that method of investing in that will loosen the way in which I am attached to my personality, because I'll say, well, of course I have this depression. That's understandable because of this planetary configuration. It will also loosen my hold to my physical body, because I will understand why I am built and functioning this way from an astrological point of view. It is using one plane of reality to extricate yourself from other planes of reality. It also must ultimately be seen as just a relatively real plane of reality. That you and I are no more astral beings than we are anything else. There's no way of defining us. These are merely functional definitions we're using to help us get free. If they are not useful to help you get free, forget about them. You don't have to live on the astral plane. You can if it's useful, you don't have to. It's just another set of myths, including the one of Armageddon and the one of Revelations and the one of the New Age and the one of the Aquarian Age, and it's all happening and nothing's happening and it stinks and it's beautiful and it's perfect. These are all myths of mind. You have to function within them, but just don't get lost in them. Be an impeccable Aries or Leo or Taurus, but don't get lost in it. I figure whichever myth is true, what difference does it make with what I do at this moment? At this moment, I've got to quiet my mind, open my heart, get my body in tune, and end suffering. That's all. My life's very simple. All I've got to do is deepen my compassion and deepen my emptiness. That's all I got to do. And what difference does it make if you tell me it's going to end in 5 minutes? What am I going to do, go to the bathroom? If I need to go to the bathroom so bad, I should go. This is the moment. This is it. This is it. This is the moment of death. This is it. This is it. This is the moment the whole astrological game led to. Now, new moment. Here we are again. Questions? The shape of the crucifix. I have absolutely nothing innovative or interesting to say about that. Lama Yeshe said you have to have a renounced mind. Excuse me, am I hearing you correctly? A renounced mind. Excuse me, I'm not hearing you. What does he mean by the statement, renounced mind? Imagine the blue sky, and then imagine clouds floating across the sky. And that every cloud is a thought, a desire, a sensation. To the extent that you identify yourself with one of the clouds, you get caught in the statement, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. To the extent that you identify with the blue sky, in which the clouds are just passing, it's sum and cogito, I am and I think. Thoughts are coming and going. You are attached to none of them. You are hearing them, you are involved in the world, you are huffing and puffing, you are playing the game, you are doing the dance, you are living your life, but you are doing it without being identified with being the actor, including the thinking mind. You are resting in the pure mind of the Buddha. That is a renounced mind. It is not a mind that denies anything. It is just not caught in anything. Question, sir? Who is Mayor Baba? I love the game Who Is. Well, Mayor Baba, how would I know who anybody is? If I don't know who I am, how could I know who anybody else is? You see, the thing about that question is that each person sees each of us in a different way. For some people, Meher Baba is the avatar of the age. They experience him as God made manifest, and through the purity of their heart and their seeking, he functions that way for them. Others see him as a guy with a great sense of humor, another guy. Others see him as a wonderful, wise person. I noticed with my guru that some people saw him as the worst, dirty old rascal, and some people thought he was absolutely God in form, right? And I think the same applies to Meher Baba, right? How do you enjoy letting go of anger? Well, Maharaji said to me, love everyone, Ram Dass, right? I said, okay. And then he called me up a little while later. He says, Ram Dass, tell the truth. All right. Then he called me up a few minutes later. He said, Ram Dass, love everyone. All right. And then he called me up a few minutes later. He said, Ram Dass, they'd say, Ram Dass, Maharaji wants to see you. And you go running up and he'd say, tell the truth. Okay, Maharaji, Jao, go away. And he kept calling me and love me, tell the truth. Well, the truth was I didn't love everyone. And always in the past, what I did was I made believe I loved everyone, and then just sort of hid the way I didn't love them. I love you, that kind of thing. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to change it around and tell the truth for a change? I mean, I might as well grow. And the truth is, and I looked around at all these Westerners who were hanging around Maharaji, and I wanted to have them all to myself, and they were all there because I had opened my big mouth back in America. And I hated all of them, see? So I really just didn't want to be near any of them, so I started to just hate them all. And I was busy not using money in those days. I was under a sadhana not to touch money, so I used to count on them to pay my car fare on the bus. But now I hated them all, so I wouldn't let them do that. So I had to walk to the temple, which made me all the more angry. And I really hated all of them. And I got to the temple, and they were all eating, and they were being with Maharaji, and I was 3 hours late because I had to walk the 8 miles. And I was furious, and I walked in, and one of the guys I hated most brought me a plate of food, and I was so furious, I took the plate of food and I threw it at him, see? I mean, I was really furious, right? This took 2 weeks to build up. Maharaji's sitting across the courtyard, and he calls me over. Ram Dass, is something troubling you? I said, yes, I hate all those people. I said, in fact, I hate everybody, including myself. I only love you. And he said, you love me? And I said, yes, I love you. And tears are streaming down his face, and I'm crying and hysterical, and he's ordering milk and feeding me milk and pulling my beard. And you love me? Yes, I love you. You hate all them? Yes. And he comes up close and he says, I thought I told you to love everyone. And I said, but you told me to tell the truth, and the truth is I hate them. And he came up close, nose to nose, eyeball to eyeball, and he said, love everyone and tell the truth. What I heard him saying was, when you are finished being who you think you are, this is who you will be. And I looked over at these people whom I hated, and I saw that one flick of consciousness away, I loved them incredibly. I was just busy hating them. But to let go of that hatred, I had righteous, good reasons. He had done this, and he had done that, and she had done this, would mean to let go of my pride. I saw that standing between me and letting go of that anger was pride. And I realized that what he was saying was that anger is never going to get me to God. It's never going to liberate me. It's not functional. So I went across, then he sent me over and he called everybody over, and then he said, go touch Ram Dass's feet. He's a great saint, which freaked me all the more. All these people I hated coming and touching my feet. I saw my predicament, so I cut up an apple into little segments, and I put a piece of apple into each person's mouth. But I knew that if you feed a person with anger in your heart, it's like putting poison into their mouths. So I had to let go of the anger, and it took me, I don't know, it seemed like an hour and a half or so to feed the 30 people, to look into each person's eyes and let go of the anger, even though I was right. Since then, I've been in this interesting predicament. Since I know that anger isn't going to get me to God, and yet I get angry because the world isn't the way I think it ought to be. Every time I get angry, I see that the longer I hold it, the harder it's going to be to let go. So I'm noticing that I let go of it sooner. I get it as often as I ever did, but I just let go of it sooner. And you get to the point where just as you're getting angry, you think, uh-oh, here we go again, and then you just let go. You just practice letting go sooner and sooner. Once you are without anger, then you can get really angry. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than Dharmic anger. I mean, a Zen monk who beats you and, you no good bum, get out of this ashram. I thought a saint never gets angry. Oh, get out. They can do it because they're not angry at all. The samurai who's supposed to kill the killer of his master, and he chases him for 2 years, and he chases him up an alley. He's a spiritual swordsman. And the murderer turns to him, and the samurai pulls the sword to kill the killer, and the killer spits in the samurai's face, and the samurai sheathes his sword and walks away. And the killer runs after the samurai and says, why didn't you kill me? I killed your master. And the killer says, and the samurai says to him, because I got angry. If I killed you when I was angry, who wants the karma of that? I mean, I was only killing you because it was my functional role as a samurai. I'm not going to kill you because I'm personally angry because you spit in my face. Okay. Which brings you to the question, where does karma come from? And it's all attached action. Anytime you're identified with the actor, you just create more of the illusion of your own separateness. Questions? What would my guru have said about homosexuality? He never said anything about it. What do I think he would have said? Well, it was interesting. I'll tell you an interesting story. I was traveling with a group of people on a spiritual pilgrimage in southern India, with Swami Muktananda, actually. And at the end of that pilgrimage, we were driving north, and I ended up in a room with one of the men in that group, and I ended up having a sexual relationship with him. And the next day, surprisingly enough, we found ourselves with a guru, which I hadn't expected to do. And I came in, and there were 5 of us sitting there, and Maharaji sat down, and he pointed to this fellow, and he said to him, he's a good one, Ram Dass. You're giving him your best teachings. And it blew my mind, because I was so full of guilt, right? I was just so full of guilt about what I had done. And I realized that he was telling me, I don't know what I can realize he was telling me. I can listen on many levels. I can say this, that to the extent that any act is done with the attachment that sees another person as an object, thus catches them more in their own separateness and paranoia, that act takes us all away from freedom. Homosexual, heterosexual, whatever. To the extent that an act comes out of a shared loving conscious space, that act can bring everybody to God, be it homosexual or heterosexual. That's the way I feel about it. Okay? So I have no way of telling you what my guru would say other than that story. Is that dealing with your question? It's not making you happy, it's dealing with your question. What did you want me to say? Excuse me? Is there another way you'd like me to deal with that question? Right, okay. The question of morality as it's taught by orthodox religions all over the world. It seems to me that if you slice the pie, if you walk down the street and look at a cross-section of humanity, you will see every different stage of evolution. You will see some beings who are very, very aware and other beings who are very, very lost into the illusion of their own separateness. There are some people who only are caught in their separateness. They never awaken at all during a lifetime, or the times they do, they deny it. They don't treat it as real. When you see what creates more and more of the stuff that keeps the illusion going, you would like to help out people who aren't in a position to help themselves because they haven't awakened enough to see how it is. So you set up a group of rules, which you can call the commandments or whatever you'd like, which are designed to keep people who are unconscious from creating more karma. As you become more conscious, the whole name of the game changes. I can't steal from you because you are me. Who am I ripping off but myself? But more and more, the rules of my behavior have no way that they have anything to do with prescriptions set down by anything or anybody else. I hear all that, but I tune to my heart and listen to what I must do next. Right? I no longer follow the commandments out of that. I follow what I do because it's obvious any damn fool would do it. I think Richard Nixon lived in a reality in his mind in which he could justify what he was doing as morally correct. I think that I do not think that what he did was morally correct, and I will protest against that and do what I can to prevent him from having the power to control other people's lives. But I don't question that from where he was sitting, he thought he was doing what he must do. And I'm doing exactly the same thing. No, it's pretty direct, I think. I mean, I don't think it's tricky. I think you have to understand that each human being has justified their position in a way to allow them to. I don't know whether a year from now, many of the things I am doing will seem terribly immoral to me and completely wrong. But the minute I say, I'll do what you tell me to do rather than what my heart tells me to do, watch it. I've got to listen with my own heart. Now, many times my heart, one voice will say, I am your deepest truth. And later I will realize it was just another hype I was doing to myself. And I fell on my face again. There's nothing wrong with falling on your face. That's what the whole spiritual trip is about. Because even the idea that there's a trip, you're falling on your face. Questions? Yes. Is there ego in reality? Is that what your question is? Is there what? Oh, is there evil? Evil in reality. Truth, good and evil are relatively real. They are not absolutely real. Absolute reality has no form. The minute you enter into positive, negative, yin, yang, dark, light, good, evil, all of it, you have entered into the worlds of relative reality because you've entered into form. And form and formless are the same thing. It's just different ways of looking at it. Yes. Where does love fit in with? Has no form. Love has no, love, truth, beauty, it's all the same thing. It's no thing. It is. It's isness. You could call it isness, all right? You start loving somebody, you love a form through into the formless, in which you are both in love, in which there is no separateness, but there is separateness, because there's no more need to use the dualistic mind to say, if there is form, there can be no formless. You don't have to do that anymore. You can allow it all to be. There is form and formless. No, it's not the love-hate polarity. It's like the third Chinese patriarch says, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. That's a great one. I love it. I mean, that could keep you going for the next 10 years. It says, when love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. What it's talking about is the polarity of love and hate. That romantic love I was talking about before. It's not the other thing which we could call love, but we could call it hate too. That's what's scary about it. There's a great story about Shiva. Somebody broke into the temple, and they were trying to steal the golden bell that was over the lingam that is the symbol of Shiva. And they climbed up on the lingam to get the bell, at which point Shiva appeared and said, most people only offer me fruit or milk. You've offered me your whole body. What do you want? See? Now that's scary. I mean, that you could get it back and into it. See? That's what's so far out about this karmic game. If you're into the Ramayana, you see that Ravana, who's the bad guy, is really a very high yogi who's merely running through a heavy incarnation. Look at Nixon's incarnation. My God, would you want it? It's a heavy one. But it's just an incarnation just like yours. And you can either buy it and think, you are Tricky Dick, or you can say, you are God in drag. See? And the game is you say you are God in drag and you love it like God, but at the same moment you keep it from doing anything to anybody. And that's the art form of living in many planes simultaneously. It's I love you, but I don't want to play any games with you. Because in the parts you and I are playing in this drama, you're them. But I know we're just our parts. The minute you forget its parts, you are perpetuating exactly the same thing he is. The paranoia. And that's the art of social action. The art of social action is to do what you do to end suffering without creating more of the same stuff that the suffering comes out of, which is the polarities and the paranoia that come out of seeing somebody as them, whether it's the government and the anti-this laws or whatever it is. Do what you do, but don't close your heart. It's such a simple rule of the game. Yes, ma'am. Yes? Sir? No, yeah. What was the first part of the question? Do I think hallucinogenic drugs are an obstruction to spiritual development? No. I think that they can be misused and that people can get hurt, and that because of society's fear of people getting hurt, they have made most hallucinogens illegal. I don't think the way you deal with human consciousness is through legislation. I think you deal through education. I think that hallucinogens are another method. They have their dangers, so does Kundalini Yoga, so does meditation, so do all methods have dangers to them. So does living life. I think you educate people and then you respect them to do what they need to do. Many people use hallucinations in a way that takes them away from liberation. Many people meditate in a way that takes them away from liberation. I have met some dusty old meditators, and it sure don't feel very free to me. Again, there are no rules in the game. People must listen with their hearts. If all you conservative people would like me to say, drugs are dangerous, stop and don't, I won't say it. Because they have served a great function for me. At the same moment, I would never recommend that another human being use them. And as far as I can see, most of the things that the hallucinogens showed me are now understood and part of the mainstream of cultural thought. And so in a way, they are an anachronism. And another way they are an attachment that seems to take you from spiritual liberation is you get hooked on the memory of the experience. That happens anytime you get high in any method. When I asked my guru, should I ever take LSD again, he said, if you were in a quiet place, you were cool, you were feeling much peace, and your mind would turn towards God, it could be useful. But every time you take something that is against the law, you realize that you are taking the entire paranoia along with it that goes from breaking the law. And you got to add that to your whole little bag of tricks. So all you need is all these points I'm making and the kind of education that goes with it to make your own decision. I trust you to manage your consciousness. And I, as a member of this culture, feel I have to honor the freedom of other human beings' consciousness, because otherwise the culture becomes absolutely stultified into just what everybody's mind thinks it ought to be. The growth comes from that freedom of us to do what we can do with our consciousness.
This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us. Please continue that support and donate at ramdas.org. We can then continue to share what Ramdas has been sharing for all of these years. Thank you.